Your Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free, Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to another edition of Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich, and I am delighted to introduce you today to my host as we start this great. Can't goof up right from the beginning. I also wanted to start with Happy New Year. I goofed because this is going to be actually right on Happy New Year Day. Okay, try that again. Welcome to another edition of Stress-Free Living, and Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Ray Samich. I'd like to introduce you to my longtime host and my dear friend, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. Happy New Year to you and our listeners. Thank you.
Yes, and also you just celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday, Ratanjit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I know it's just your body, it's not the real you, but we still celebrate what we see and who we can hug, and that would be you. So,
well, the gift of the vehicle, which is given to us, we want to be grateful on this day that this vehicle is still working and human body. And so we are basically on our birthday, we must realign ourselves and go forward and live the rest of our life meaningfully.
Well, you certainly have learned that and have helped me to understand that and helped countless other people the same way. And you just have a birthday here at this time of the year around the holidays, but at the same time, a lot of people have this new opportunity to align themselves the first of every new year. You know, the minutes and the hours and the days just run into each other and they go by so quickly. And there really isn't any difference between December 31st and January 1st. It truly is just the next day. But in our mind, we think it's a big deal. We think this is the change, this is the chance to do next year what we should have done last year, or to do it better, to do it differently, to be more complete with our lives, to be more fulfilling. We really do look at the 1st of January as an opportunity to change. So I love our title today. How can we make this new year the very best year ever? What can we do, Ratanjit? Do you have a magic formula here that can help us all enjoy a much better 2022?
Absolutely.
Good.
Well,
and what's the fee going to be for this? Because people are willing to pay any amount of money to have happiness in their lives.
Once they become the best they can be, that is the best fee they can pay to our society, because the society will gain and we each individual will gain. So your best gift is going to be the best you can be. And that is the gift to our society, your family, yourself, everybody.
And I think we want that. I mean, I really do believe that, especially during the holidays, we sit back for a moment. The world doesn't stop, but it does slow down a little bit because we take the time to be with family and friends and do things that are a little different. And I think we do then say, how can I be better? How can I add more value to my family, to my friends, to where I work, where I spend all my time? How can I be better at a person? Because ultimately, you say it all the time, I think ultimately that fulfillment that we have within ourselves is the best gift that we can give ourselves.
Right. Well, see, in life, Ray, we are inundated by information, by our acquisitions, by our expectations, by things which are totally not in our control. And the things which are in our control, we don't have enough time to take care of them. So when in a new year, an event like this, a new year comes, it allows you mentally to make a new start. So I say, okay, I have been, it's like when you find a new job and all this, you have excitement. Okay, I'm going to start this way, I'm going to do this way. When I migrated to US in 68, so I said, oh gosh, I'm going to start a fresh life now. I have my slate is clean and all that. So we can utilize this event every year to realign ourselves. And see, the thing which we need to do is, first thing is, we have to realize that I still have this vehicle, this human body, which is gifted to me. Now, imagine if you purchase a car, a used car, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so first thing, what are you going to do? You're going to take it to an expert who can make it go through everything, make sure all the parts are working, everything is working, and then you would get it polished or cleaned and everything else. So it's almost as best it can be. So the first thing we have to do is think of that again, that I got this body again. We have been taking this body, human body, for granted. So let's because all our activities are going to be performed through this human body. So we need to realign and fix this human body to the best condition it can be fixed. So first thing you have to do is make sure that you get a physical checkup. Find out what is right and what is wrong, what else can you do, and then sit down with the dietitian, because the garbage in, garbage out, whatever you have been eating, your eating habits. So the fuel you put into the human body, if it is not correct, is not going to function correctly. So instead of just being guided by the taste, we need to be guided by the proper intelligence, which is going to make this body function correctly. Then we have to make sure that we clean this human body, realign this human body, make it look at its best possible. But now, when you buy the car, it also has a computer today. And many of the old owner has put in certain things. The seat has to be, when I press one, the seat has to come out in this alignment. And so you have to realign the computer. So your mind is your computer. You have to make sure that the garbage in the computer is taken out, and you have to put in the fresh new data in your brain.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you for a second, and I do want to talk about the computer and the brain and all that, but I want to go back to the thing before that, and that was taking the car to a expert to get it fixed up and running right. And so the analogy there was our human body with our health, eating the right foods, losing weight, feeling better, being at our best. You know that the number one New Year's resolution forever is that people say they're going to lose weight as the number one New Year's resolution. That every single year they run the surveys, and that's the thing that most people say is the on their list. I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to eat healthier. I'm going to work out. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to get into a different lifestyle. And it's almost a joke, Ratanjit, because when you talk to the people 2 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 3 months later, almost nobody has kept that resolution. It's the saddest thing, because on January 1st, everybody is committed, and it doesn't take long for the overwhelming majority of those people to give up. So let's talk about that just a little bit more, because that was the first thing you mentioned. You fix up your body, you fix up your car, and the analogy is that we fix up our body. How can we stick to it, Ratanjit? How can we motivate ourselves that what seems so important to us on January 1st becomes less and less important every day after that, until most of us give up and we never bother doing it?
Well, that brings us to the next point, which is we can have all the knowledge of how to reduce weight, how to live healthy. But until we cultivate the knowledge into our living habits, we will not follow through, because we live our habits, not our knowledge. Look at our physicians, medical professionals. The life cycle of a medical professional is less than the life cycle of an ordinary human being. Whereas the medical professional is trained scientifically, he knows what to eat, he knows what to do to be healthy. But that remains in the knowledge. They have not cultivated into habits. So until we change our habits, so the next thing we need to do is take an inventory of our habits. We never do that. We don't even realize, and you have to ask your spouse, your children, your friends about your habits. Many of your habits you may not even know they exist. So once you find a complete list of the habits you have, and find a list of the habit you want to cultivate, then you work towards cultivating those habits. And then things will begin to fall into place.
Now, this is something new. I mean, up until this point, taking an inventory, evaluating our body, changing our mind, taking out the old hardware, putting in new software, those kind of things. That's pretty much what you read everywhere and what people say everywhere. But I don't know if I've heard taking an inventory of habits before. If I have it, I don't remember it. So that's new and unique and a little bit exciting to me to think about doing that, just because it is something I haven't done before. And because you are absolutely right, we are our habits. That's what we do from the moment that we open our eyes in the morning until we close them at night. We are pretty much on autopilot for most of our day, every day, over and over and over again. So let's go a little bit more in depth on that idea, if you don't mind, because I think that is the difference that can change our coming year for us. First of all, my first thought is that we might be afraid to actually make that inventory, especially when you mention, ask our spouse and ask our family and friends, because I guess I'm not really sure I want to know what they perceive my habits to be. And maybe I don't want to admit that those are my habits, because if I'm just going to make my own list, I'm probably not going to put any bad habits on there. I'm only going to put the things that I know are pretty good, or at least are neutral. I don't know if I'm going to be honest enough with myself to admit that I have a lot of bad habits. Do you think my friends and family will be honest with me and tell me what I do that I shouldn't be doing?
But if you are sincere, and if you are like your old self, when they mention your bad habit, you get upset, then they are not going to tell you your bad habits. But if you are sincere and they realize that if they tell you the bad habits, you're not going to be upset, and you are grateful for that input, then they will be honest with you. It is really up to you how sincere you are in transforming yourself into a amazingly happy, joy-filled, successful human being. So the rewards are amazing once you go through this. So now, go ahead.
Yeah, because I still want to stay with this a little bit. Ego, we always talk about ego, and that is at the core of so many of our day-to-day problems and our day-to-day stresses. It's going to impact my ego to face that I have bad habits. It's going to impact my ego when my spouse and my children and my friends tell me the truth that I have some bad habits that I don't want to admit I have. And it's going to hurt my ego when they do that. And I'm going to have to be able to cope with that situation graciously, to admit that they're right and I really do have these problems. Is that a good overall, what I just talked about, is that a good lesson for my ego? Is that going to help me to be more in control and have less ego going forward because I admit that they are right and that these are faults that I have? And or is that going to cause me to have even more ego because now I'm more insecure and I don't know how to handle this, and so it's going to cause me to not admit that those are really false and deny them. How could that play out?
Well, see, Ray, you brought a very good point. Ego is our major culprit in our life, and it debilitates us in life. Because of our ego, we end up sacrificing, losing battles, and even the loved one, we throw them away, and so on and so forth. But we don't realize, see, to digress a little bit to understand ego, if you have a headache, and the headache is going to cause certain consequences. Your focus is not going to be there. Your desire to do things is not going to be there because this headache is taking away the main attention. But now you want to remove the headache. But until you know what causes the headache, you will not be able to remove it. So similarly, the effect of ego, we all know. But we don't realize where does the ego come from. So in order for us to remove the ego, we have to understand where this thing, ego in ourselves, coming from. Now, you mentioned earlier, we are on autopilot. So now what happens is just like a car, a vehicle which is driven by itself, and if self-driving is not taking on the right instruction from you, what are you going to do? You are going to take it off of the self-pilot and you begin to drive itself. So in the beginning of this year, to take charge of your life, take yourself off of autopilot and let the real you begin to drive you. Now, go ahead, you have something.
No, that's there's just so many things that you say here today that I can branch off with. And that is one that I really want to, taking ourselves off of autopilot, what that means. But we have to take a break, Ratanjit. So let's do that for a moment. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about that last step, taking ourselves off autopilot, getting an inventory of our habits, facing up to our ego, all these things that can hopefully make this coming year the very best year of our life. This is Stress-Free Living. We'll be right back. We're back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich, with you as we are talking about making this coming year the very best of our life. Isn't that something that we would all love to be able to do? Ratanjit, just before the break, you said something very profound. You said maybe it starts for changing our life and changing the new year by taking ourselves off autopilot. And that is a really powerful statement, because I think we don't realize how much we are on autopilot in our life. When people talk to us, we just have the same answers. When we go to our office or school or whatever we go to, we just immediately dive back into the norm of how we act there. Everything we do really is autopilot. Even when we go on vacation, if we're older in our life and we've been on vacation for 20 times or 50 times already, we go into vacation autopilot mode. And we do that the same way we always do it. We don't really think about many of our actions. Most of our actions that we take every single day are autopilot. Now, that's a blessing. It's a gift. It's amazing that our human computer can do that. But in some ways, it really does limit us from being the person we can be and trying new things and adding more value, because we want to change. So I want to take a time out from everything else we're talking about. Is that really possible? I mean, our brain is so amazing. Our human body is so amazing. It does so much without us thinking. How do we cause ourselves to say, I'm not going to allow that today? I'm not going to put that autopilot switch on. Is that even possible?
Well, going back to the analogy of car, the car you purchase is running on autopilot. If it's a self-driving car, supposing. So it has, now, if you are going to drive the car yourself and take it off the autopilot, then you, the driver, has to wake up.
Right.
He has to take charge, right? So
yes.
in our human life, our human body is that car which runs on autopilot. But the real me is sleeping. We have to awaken the real me present in this human body. So people are wondering, gosh, what is he talking about? The real me, see, the human body is designed miraculously. It has so many automated system. You eat something and it converts into blood. It creates bone, flesh, and everything else. You don't even know what is happening in this body. So part of the human body is always on autopilot. If we have to do something, now our brain, which is also part of the human body, but when the brain is controlled by the demand and intention of this human body, it works in a certain way. See, this human body, nature has designed in such a way that it has amazing capabilities. It senses heat, it senses cold. And so when it is too cold, its body has some discomfort, and then you get out of the cold that you don't freeze to death. Similarly, when it is hot, the stove, when a little kid doesn't know what is hot until he touches the stove and then he knows it is hot. So the same thing, when we eat something bitter, your taste knows that it spits out completely. Most of the poison are bitter. So it is all designed to protect this body. This human body realizes that it is going to age. Human body realizes that it is going to die. And forever, it is constantly protecting itself. And in the protection mode, it also began to realize that it is separate than the other body. And then emotional side of the human body to feed, it has created an ego system in it. So I am a better person, and it feeds his ego to make it artificially feel better, secure, confident. But until we realize that the power, the life in the human body, which is without that, the human body is dead. That power in the human body has no ego. The power in the human body is forever there. It was there before it entered the body. It will be there after it leaves the body. That divine power present in the human body, which makes it alive, is identical. What is present in you, what is present in me, what is present in everyone. That is the one who we need to awaken, and that is the one we need to give charge and get out of the autopilot of the human body mode. So once we know, once we awaken the power within us and give charge to the power within us, that power is free of fear, free of greed, free of ego, free of jealousy, free of guilt, free of all these diseases which are associated with this machine or human body. So we now can think uncontaminated. We can now make a decision that what is truly right for me or truly right for us, because it also realizes in that divine mode that I cannot survive without everybody surviving equally. I cannot be happy until the entire environment around me is happy. So it has a different perspective. Go ahead, Ray.
No, this is fascinating. I'm trying to think and coordinate my thoughts. I asked you if it was possible for us to even go out of autopilot, and you gave a very thorough answer. If I were to try to understand this and rephrase some of the elaborateness of what you said, I think I can answer my question. Is it possible for us to go into to not be an autopilot? The answer really is no, if we are trying to do it with our brain. If we're trying to train our brain not to be on autopilot, all of those automated sequences that we've been talking about are even going to be in place when we try with one part of our brain to control another part of our brain. When we try not to have ego, we will potentially have more ego. You've always given the example that say when you say something, when somebody compliments you and you say no, no, I'm not really good, or I'm not really talented, or whatever, you always say that's more ego when you even act that way. So it seems that if we are operating with our brain in our human body, it's going to be very difficult for us not to continue to basically do what we've been doing, because even though we might be successful in eliminating some of our habits, the process of changing that is going to become a habit. And the process of trying to identify certain things will have our own protection devices, instincts that are still going to come in play. So I think the short answer to my question, is it possible to change our habits and to not be on autopilot, is a no, as long as we're doing it through the normal channels of using our human body.
So
is that true?
Yeah, the first thing we have to do is cultivate this fundamental habit of not staying in the body mode, staying in the spiritual mode. So remaining awake is a habit, and being operated by the spiritual mode can be a habit. So once we cultivated that habit, that will be the master habit, which will control all your other habits. So how do we do that?
Well, yeah. How do we do that? I mean, that sounds like a perfect plan, but aren't they formed in our human brain? So how do we use our human brain to form a habit for the real us?
Well, see, ultimately, we have to operate through this machine. Okay?
Yeah.
So this machine has a computer, human brain. And if we properly put a proper software in the human brain, we can change how the human brain operates. And the habit, which I'm calling, is also equivalent to a software in the human brain. So if we change the software of the human brain, we can change everything, what we do and how we feel, and what everything around us changes. But if we are trying to change something with the same software, then we have something we are fighting against ourselves. We will never win. That is why all the resolutions which is done by very willing people, committed people, end up going wayside, falling wayside.
You know, you've been using some analogies today, which are really good. I think they're very helpful for us to understand things. There's a lot of softwares out there for computers. I mean, there's apps today, applications that are probably in the hundreds of thousands of different apps that you can use to do anything. And there's all kinds of very, very elaborate program software that you can use to do pretty much anything. But it really comes down to your operating software that's on your phone or on your computer, that's at the very base. Before you can do any other app or any other program that you want to do, that core operating software is essential. And I think if we're using the analogy here, that same analogy of our computer brain, I think we need to change our core operating software in our body, because we're worried about all these apps. We're worried about all these ways that we do things on a day-to-day basis with our mind and our body, which are kind of like habits. And we're not really looking at what that core operating software is that is essential. Because if that's broken, then none of the apps are going to function properly. Everything that you have loaded onto that computer is potentially going to be bad, because that operating software has to be perfect. So is this a fair analogy with what you've been talking about, that we have to go back to that very core and realize that even the brain is an app that is operating on our software, if we have the wrong core operating software, even the brain's not going to function properly.
Absolutely. And that is why we are blaming everybody. We are blaming the environment, government, or scientists, or doctors, or parents, or society, and everybody. And we have all kinds of reason to justify that. But we are not going to be able to correct anything until we realize where the problem lies. So if we can, go ahead.
See, if you just said it again, something very profound. If we don't realize it, I mean, if we don't even think of what we've just been talking about for the last half hour, if we don't even think that this is a possibility, if we don't even realize that this is there, then there's no way that we're going to be able to fix it or change it or adjust, because we don't even realize it's going on. And so often I share with you that we think our brains are in charge. We think that's the ultimate king of our body, is what goes on in our brain. And again, you've just given the opportunity here to think that that isn't what's in charge. It's something far more critical in our core operating software that our brain also relies on. So I think we've come to a major realization here, Ratanjit, that we can use when we come back after this break to really figure out how do we change this core operating software then, so that we are in tune to run the very best programs for our bodies for the next 12 months. I'll let you think about how we're going to do that, because we'll only have one less segment to be able to figure this one out. We are on Stress-Free Living. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich with Ratanjit Sandhi, talking today about trying to make 2022 the best year of our life. Ratanjit, this has been a very eye-opening show for me. Even though we've talked about some of these things before, it never really hit home as much as it has today. That we have all these habits that are in our lives that basically allow us to run on autopilot. And a lot of those habits we're not proud of, but they are what they are. We've fallen into them. And you've impressed me now to understand that we have this core operating software that all of these habits are functioning in. And a lot of these habits are not good ones, but maybe they would be good if our core operating software was better, but because that's damaged and not perfect, our habits are not perfect. And if we try to change these habits, we're going to probably create other habits that are equally, if not worse, bad. So how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this conundrum that we're in that says, I want to change these bad habits. I want to realize that I have to change my operating software so that I'm more in tune with the real me and less run by my human fallible brain. What is the way of kind of getting all of this righted so that we can actually start moving in a positive direction?
Well, as I said, if we change the one master habit, right now our core habit is we let our brain run everything. We have to run the brain. See, we don't realize of all the organs in our human body, or heart, or kidney, or liver, or lungs, and all these organs. And brain is the most unreliable of all the organs. And we let brain run our entire life. And that is why we are in such a such a sad state of affairs. Now, let me clarify why brain is such an unreliable organ. Because brain gather its data from our five senses. What our eye sees, it records. What we hear, it records or remembers. What we touch, what we feel, what we taste, it remembers. But not realizing that these data gathering instruments or eyes or ear or taste or feeling or touch and all that gather incomplete information. Our eyes can see only certain lights. We can only hear certain frequencies. That's why what dog can hear, we cannot hear. So at best, Ray, the data gathered by our brain is going to be incomplete. It doesn't stop there. Because of our insecurity or fear or greed or ego, the information coming in gets contaminated. That's why 10 people given the same information, the same data, or the same thing to watch or gather information, come up with 10 different informations, although they are given the same information. So if we let our entire life run on autopilot guided by our brain, which is basically contaminated by our insecurity of the human body, we are never going to remain in control of our life. And that's why we are good-hearted, good people can't agree, can't see eye to eye today. So who should run the show? The show should be run by the power which is present within us, which is laying dormant, is asleep, is in coma. If we wake that up and let that power run the brain, that is the software, new software for the brain, then automatically things will begin to fall in place. Now, how do we do this? Before we go there, you have some questions?
No, that was going to be my question. Okay, you've convinced me. The unreliability of the brain, and even before you gave that, scientific explanation, I think we all know that our brain is unreliable. I think we all know that it makes decisions that it shouldn't have made. So we've all been bitten by our brain and how it has misled us and then attempts to tell us that it was right when we know it was wrong. So we know that. You've just given the scientific reasons why. So what's the next step? How do we if the brain isn't the king, how do we
So how we have to give,
how do we make this other thing work?
We have to give the power of operating to the divine power present within us.
How?
So how do we do that is habits can be cultivated if we do anything consecutively 40 times, and if you do 90 times, it becomes a lifestyle. We know that. Scientific facts tell us this. So how do we change our operating system from the brain to the universal power present within us? We pick up time every morning, a particular time. Has to be exactly the same time because body operates on a cycle. So supposing you picked up 6 o'clock in the morning, By the time you get up and clean yourself and have a bath and get yourself ready, by 6, now you stand in front of a mirror and you see the reflection of this human body. Then you realize that this human body is given to me as equivalent of a car to run around to make my life experiences in this world. But the real operating boss is the power within the body. So you need to first be grateful for this gift of car or this human body to the divine power, because you have not earned it. It is given to you. It has amazing capabilities. It has amazing creative mind. It has incredible organs. It self-generates itself. It heals itself. So for that, be grateful. And now close your eyes and open your eyes, look back into your eyes. You see the life in this human body. The life is brought into the human body by the universal power. It is like the light coming into a light bulb, which is, when it is connected to the powerhouse, the light in the light bulb is what makes the light bulb alive. So all the light bulbs are connected to the same powerhouse. So similarly, all of us have life in us because we are connected to the universal power around us, within us. And that power has no prejudice, no fear, no greed, no jealousy, no ego. So once we give charge to that pure soul present within us, the power present within us, and let the brain be controlled by that power, we will always make the right decisions. And then going forward, all the habits cultivated by that control of power are going to be the correct habits. And now when you get out of that exercise, when you see your spouse, you begin to see her or him in a different light. You see the same power in that spouse. You see the same power in your children. You see the same power in your friends. It's the same power in the strangers. So suddenly, your purpose of life becomes very clear, is to serve that power present in everyone. And then you begin to utilize the uniqueness of this human body, its gift of creativity, and its gift of thinking uniquely to add highest value to whoever you come across. Once you are on that mission of adding the highest value, imagine, Ray, people will have an enormous value for you. It's not important that everyone follows that path. It doesn't matter whether everybody goes through that exercise or no. But if you follow that path of serving that divine present in everyone unconditionally to your best effort, and imagine your relationships are going to improve because you are not judging them. You are always thinking, what can I do to add value to them? When you are at work, on your job, you are not concerned about how much you are paid or what your title is. You are constantly concerned about how do you add the value to every confrontation you face, whether you come across your fellow workers or your boss or your customers or your suppliers or any strangers, you're always thinking of adding the highest value. The word you speak must follow the same. They must also add highest value. So you are not parked in the ego mode, and the satisfaction of adding the highest value is so enriching that you will have a presence of joy and peace within you at all times.
We've got about 90 seconds. You've given all of the explanations of how that is a beautiful ending to the incredible story, and how the value to our families, our friends, in our workplace, all of that is multiplied hundredfold, and it all makes sense. I have a quick question about that transition. When I'm in the mirror and I am realizing that what I'm staring at is not the real me, and I look through my eyes and I look down deep into within me, and I realize there's more there that I need to allow to be in charge. Isn't my brain still involved in that process? How do I actually shift it at that moment that I say, okay, I'm more than a brain, I'm more than the body, I am a real divine person within. How do I make that shift?
But so that's where we are changing the software of the brain. So brain now begin to think who we are.
Okay.
And
okay.
Begin to have a unconditional gratefulness present in it. And that unconditional gratefulness is like a cleansing process. It cleans all the cobwebs and all the problems present in the brain. All our prejudices and everything goes away once you are in the unconditional gratefulness mode, and remembering that divine power is present within me. See, you cannot.
Okay, you mentioned the creativity capabilities of the brain. Maybe we have to introduce this to our brain, that there is much more to us than just what we have been taught, what we have been told is true. Maybe that's part of opening up our brain to that reality.
Right.
Which it normally isn't going to even ponder because it thinks it's just within our body. And it's so much more than that.
Ultimately, we'll be operated by the computer, but computer has to be given the right software.
Right. Ratanjit, this has been fascinating, always enlightening to be with you. And especially as we start a new year together, may the divine continue to inspire you and keep you healthy and strong so that we can continue this well into this new year and beyond. Thank you so much, Ratanjit.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to all of our fabulous listeners, wherever you may be. We wish you all a happy new year. We look forward to talking to you again. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day.
Happy birthday.
Hi, sister. How are you?
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Did brother sing to you yet today?
No, I didn't sing.
Let's
not
sing.
Yet.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ratanjit. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
May the dear Lord bless you. May the dear Lord bless you. May the dear Lord bless Ratanjit, brother. Happy birthday to you and many more. There we go.
You. Hey, it looks like I have purple hair.
Yeah, yeah, you look like you have,
it does look like you have purple hair. I wonder why.
I don't know. It's not purple, it's brown.